Hello, hello from the Spanish capital. This is Gabriel Quiroga of Barca Talk Podcast. Joined with me is Craig. Craig, boy, we got a lot to talk about. Just
We do
within
indeed.
24 hours of Brian and Alejandro recording their Copa del Rey basically summary, news broke out yesterday, the Superliga, and you wanted to jump on and talk about it. I mean, I want to talk about it too. There's a lot of things going on. Let's start off first, Craig. What is your overarching opinion about this creation of the Super League?
There's a lot to go through, isn't there? Obviously, I think that the first thing that jumps out to me is just how inevitable this has all been. The people who are claiming to be shocked, I would ask them firstly, where have you been for the last 30 years of football? This isn't, to me, a new paradigm shift that we've got. This is the culmination of decades of, well, let's say what it is. It's the capitalism of football.
Sure.
Football as an every person sport full of local heroes and morality died decades ago. It died with the Champions League, let's be honest. So for me, I'm not shocked. I think because I expected it, I'm not as horrified as some people are. I've got a lot of questions about it, but to me, it was inevitable. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I hate it all around because, even though the Champions League is quote unquote a relatively new kind of tournament, right? I mean, it's 20, 25, 30 years old. I still love the passion of it. I love the matchups and I love how hard it is to win, right? And creating the Super League kind of just takes that away, right? It takes away from the teams that are qualifying the year before, giving them their moment of glory. And again, from an FC Barcelona perspective, I feel jaded, right? Because, as much as I want to ignore that FC Barcelona is a super club, it is a super club. And we have the riches to do this type of thing, and directly FC Barcelona is probably not going to be affected too much. But again, we will see what happens. And again, today, just in 24 hours, we just saw UEFA come back with basically a threat, right? Essentially saying that any players that are going to be involved in the Super League will not be able to participate in the World Cup and in the UEFA tournament this summer, essentially. What do you think about UEFA's position on all this?
I don't see how they've got any legs to stand on whatsoever. How can you? How can you? So, football is a product. It's a product. We all need to accept now that unless you're following the lower divisions of football, that you're buying a product. You're a consumer. You're not a fan. You're a consumer. In every walk of life nowadays, you're a consumer. It costs you to be a socio. It costs you to buy a burger. It costs you to buy one of the 4 strips we put out. I mean, we brought out. Right, let's take this back. We brought out a strip to wear for one game that will cost you £70, whatever that is in euros or dollars. Sure. We're a consumer-led market. If you're UEFA and FIFA, and your flagship product is your international tournaments, are you really going to remove Messi and Ronaldo and De Bruyne? You're not.
You're not. Yeah.
You're just not, because it then becomes like the Olympics. And how many of us, if we're honest, watched the Olympic football when it was on? I've got my own feelings on Great Britain as an entity, so I had no desire to watch it, but I also didn't watch any other teams playing. It becomes a second-rate product. You're not going to do that. The other thing for me on this, which I find really interesting, is currently the 2 biggest players in the world, Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Ronaldo is largely done. I would say he needs to ride off in the sunset somewhere. Messi won't be a million miles behind him.
Sure.
After that, who would you say the 2 biggest players in the world of football are or are soon to be? Because for me, it would be Haaland and Mbappe.
Yeah, I mean that's natural. Yeah.
Yeah. Currently, they're both at clubs who aren't joining the Super League.
Exactly.
Certainly in theory, but everything tells me that they both will be soon.
Sure.
Mbappe probably to Madrid, I think, is the sensible route. Haaland to either Barca, God knows where we find the money, but we'll come on to that very soon, or City. I just don't understand how, if you get people around a boardroom table at UEFA or FIFA, which is where these decisions are thrashed out, and say, we're going to ban the best people that make this product attractive to all our consumers, especially now that we've started taking it to different countries. How many people in Gdansk are going to go and watch are going to go and watch these games that aren't Poland if you don't have the biggest names there? I don't see it happening. I think they're trying to pull on maybe the heartstrings of players.
Sure.
But how would you, and before I come back, I'm sorry, but how would you, if you were a player and someone says to you, okay, in order for you to represent Spain once every 4 years against now weakened international teams, so you're no longer testing yourself against the best, you, instead of playing for Barca or Madrid, you've now got to go and play for Granada. With no disrespect to Granada, you're not doing that on a third of the wage.
Yeah.
You're not doing that. So I think it's a baseless threat. I don't see it happening. I think the final point I'll make on the UEFA thing, I promise, and I'll send it back to you, is the idea that UEFA and FIFA are complaining of greed, even though I inherently disagree with this league, is the most hypocritical thing I've ever heard in my life. You've got to be kidding me. Take your Gazprom signs down. Take your oil money down. Stop your dictatorships that are whitewashing football. Put some morality back from your own side and stop throwing stones in your own glass house. You know, it's pathetic that you've got these organizations talking about greed. We can all pick faults in it, but for those organizations to state greedy is embarrassing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
What's your opinion on the international side of things?
I mean, that's the only leverage they have. That's the only leverage they have. And of course, like, you look at the idea where you were talking about the less of the talent that's going to be there in the world competition. But again, the Euros and the World Cup are still the most prestigious tournaments, if you're going to say, as a player.
Why though? Why?
Because it's the hardest to win. It's every 4 years. Those are the things. So again, I understand what UEFA and FIFA are doing with this leverage of that. Obviously, like you said, I don't know how it's going to stand. More importantly, if you're a star player, you're making the decision now on money and future tournaments. Again, this is all just theater for right now because basically, I imagine, this has obviously been in the works. UEFA was not blindsided by this. I mean, I'm sure they knew that this was coming. But again, the idea of these clubs, screaming as well that they need more money, to me is another issue. Because, like, for example, here in Spain, right, the revenue that gets split here between Real Madrid and Barcelona, they make up, I think it's 40%, and then the rest of the pie is split up with the rest of the teams, And Madrid and Barcelona always have this complex that they always deserve money. And now you're adding these other 10 teams to this mix. And to me, I get it, with the pandemic, these teams have been hurt and so forth, but the Super League is not the answer. To me, I do not want to see these same teams every time competing. To me, it takes away from the glory, the past, the hardship of this tournament, which I really thoroughly enjoy. It always reminds me of the NCAA basketball tournament, the emotion, the surprises, and also the freshness of these new teams that come through the ranks. And so those are go on.
So there's a lot to unpack there, but let's go through it. You're saying that it's the unpredictability of the Champions League. Who was the last team that won the Champions League that surprised you?
No. What I'm saying is, like, just in the group stages, right? And then some of the knockout stages, that you don't have this perennial 10, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, for example, this season, Barcelona's not through there, I'm just saying, if you're going to have this Super League, you're always going to have these same teams, and they're not going to go through these group stages, essentially. And I take your point, but I would argue that we have, and I'm not in favor of this league. I would argue that we have it anyway. The current financial situation that we're in, the current imbalance of money that football finds itself is that I reckon at the start of every season, you could probably pick 80% of the teams that will make up the last 16 of the Champions League. Sure.
If not more. And the other thing as well is, if we get back to this thing as football as a business, because it is, if you want to watch players on 500 grand a week, you need to accept that somewhere along the line, the soul of football has died, right?
Yeah.
Even if we look at the greatest teams in our recent memory, none of them were commercially anything other than conglomerates. They're all players playing under very interesting, playing fast and loose with tax rules. The other thing is, so if you're a marketing executive, if you're someone sat around the table at UEFA and FIFA, how many people do you think watched, I've picked a game here, Rennes versus Krasnodar in the groups? How many neutrals watch Rennes versus Krasnodar this year in the Champions League compared to how many would watch a Barca Liverpool, a Madrid Juventus?
Of course. I'm not.
So the Champions League group stages are, by and large, they're at best starters for a main course. Now, if you've got consumers that no longer want to eat a 3-course meal, you're going to have to do that. And the point that it is for me is, the market that football now serves isn't the market that it stems from. With the best will in the world, you're not a local to Barcelona. I'm clearly not a local to Barcelona.
Yeah.
I'm irrelevant to Football Club Barcelona. I'm irrelevant because I can be replaced like that with someone from another market, another global market. As long as tourists will flock to these stadia, which they will, the club, the fans are largely irrelevant. It's about bodies through the door, not where those bodies are from, not how long they've been members. And I refuse to take lectures from any chairman in world football that it's anything other, because it's a business now. So I think that's just the reality of it, is that we've got a predictable Champions League by and large. We have leagues that are almost certainly locked in across the big leagues. The top 6 in England, you can pretty much pick them. The top 2 in Germany, you can almost certainly pick them. The top 3 in Spain, you can almost certainly pick them. The top ones in Italy, you can almost certainly pick them. And then you get in there. So the competitive leagues are poor. They're poor in terms of their quality. You can take one out of Portugal, who might do well, maybe 2, depending on the season. But you know, I have a lot of my friends who follow Celtic, and I follow them myself. And people will say, well, the champions of Scottish football deserve to go in. Well, maybe they do, but do they draw a crowd? Are they going to go in and get beat? I remember Celtic getting beat 7-0 by PSG. Do we want to see that? And then you get into teams. Celtic and Rangers are big clubs. Let's go further down the chain. Let's go into leagues who are truly atrocious. Where does the line stop? So I think if football is to become homogenous again, then you need to take it back to where it was pre-Champions League. It needs to be a cup of only champions, which means one from Spain, one from England, one from Italy. It's never going to happen. It's tipped the curve now. The snowball is rolling down the mountain, and we're not going to stop it. So I think fans really have a choice, which is you vote with your feet and you go and follow someone else. You know, if you're a Barcelona fan, do you go and follow, I don't know, Tarragona? Do you go and follow Reus? Do you go and follow,
probably
Girona? Well, no. Why would you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, if you're, I like going back to this thing about who draws who and stuff. I guess I just like this idea of these European teams just having a chance, right? I know, like you said, you had a perfect analogy. It's the starter to the main course and all this. Yes, I get all that. And now when we talk about the economics of this, obviously, you know, like you said, in each league, you have the top tier giants that are always going to be favored. And that's what's happening, right? I mean, we've only had a couple, teams that have come out of nowhere, like Leicester, for example, and that's about it, right? In Serie A, it's always been Juventus. Here in Spain, it's the top 3 as usual, right? Now, you know, if we want to talk about economics and making the playing field even, essentially, there has to be some sort of salary cap structure that happens, and that's never going to happen, right? Because these teams will never allow that to happen.
Yeah.
So again, you know, as a FC Barcelona fan, we are in a good position because whether this goes into a super league or not, we are still going to benefit from the best football, essentially, because we are a super club, right? Now, as a Barca fan, do you see this, you know, being as a positive to lure better players? Let's say if this goes through, I mean, how is this structure? I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the structure of the Super League. They play in the beginning, they play a knockout round, 2 in a way. But to me, I don't like that they only playing so many less games through the Champions League of this new Super League, that it just kind of makes it easier to win in a sense. I don't know. I just love the Champions League so much in the tournament. Like, to just change it, to me, is just really hard for me to this. I'm usually really adaptive to new rules, like in baseball, or new things in football and all stuff. But like, I love this tournament so much, and just to see it change, like, it's really difficult for me to think about this without my heart, you know.
All you're going to have, if you take out Spurs and Arsenal, who are just bizarre additions into this group, right?
It's just money. It's just money.
Insanity that they're in there. But anyway, it is what it is. If you take out them, you're effectively just playing the last 16 in the Champions League.
I know.
On paper anyway. So you're not. I don't think you're making it harder. It's always going to be as hard, because it's basically the same teams. What you're making it is less difficult to not be in that pot. So you're actually making it easy for your club if you're in there. The other thing I would say is that you said about attracting players. Will it make it easier to attract players? Well, I don't think so, because the players are at the clubs that people want to play for anyway, minus Arsenal and Spurs. So I don't think so. The clubs impacted by this are fairly and squarely the clubs that aren't in it. That's it.
Yeah.
Because if you're in that 12,
Sure,
I don't foresee any chance that the leagues get rid of them, and I don't see any chance that UEFA from FIFA get rid of them. So realistically, you're just playing the same level of teams in a different structure under a different brand, if you like.
Sure.
It's McDonald's taking over Burger King for me. They're both soulless. They both exist purely for cash. The food's largely die out, but people go there because they're used to it, and people will always eat there if they don't know where else to go. So that's where I think it is. The crux of the matter is that football died a long, long time ago and became a pursuit for cash. And this is no different. It's a rebranding for all intents and purposes. It's not a wholesale change and the other thing I would say is that, we look at the group stages. Barca, there's two streams. So Barca, you're going to watch the Barca game every time we play in the group stages, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So you're realistically going to half the amount of games that you can watch. Yeah, well, not strictly true. You're going to take off 25%. So you've then got the option of who are you watching. So in those group games, who are you watching? And I'm not going to second guess you. I would be amazed if people who were watching anyone who isn't their team are watching who aren't watching. Sorry, at least one of the teams that are in that league, and will likely continue. The other thing I would say is that, and again, I'm not inherently in favor of this. I'm just trying to put a balanced argument because people are losing their mind over this.
Yeah.
They've said there will be 5 slots open based on performance.
Sure.
So scale the numbers down. Is that not exactly the format that we have?
I understand what you're saying. You're making really good points, right? It's really hard. I still need to mull this over still, because here, like for example, in the TV show today, they were opinionating people, all over Spain. And of course, it's the same thing. It's about greed, money, and all that stuff. Again, I don't know. I still watch all the group stage matches. I just love seeing the different players I never get to see. So for me, it's something that it's like my only opportunity to see other leagues that I'm not really watching. And that's selfishly of me, right? That's on me, right? I don't know about you're making the point, right? Like it's always going to be these teams, anything. I get it. I totally get it. But at the same time, I just love the way it's set up. I just think it doesn't mean it. And again, I just go back to I just go back to this money thing with, the backing from JP Morgan Bank putting up with this money as well. I mean, Florentino Perez will be the commissioner essentially of this Super League. I mean, this thing just
we have Qatar Airways outside our stadium.
I know.
I honestly don't want to hear arguments from anyone. I include us. I include our club. I include you. I include me. I include every socio of this club. If you're willing to spend money in any guise on Football Club Barcelona, whilst we have an association with Qatar Airways, I don't want to hear any talk about whether things are right or wrong in terms of morals. We are implicated with one of the worst regimes that are on the planet.
Sure.
Who behead people for their sexuality. We're talking awful levels of discrimination. Is a bank worse? Is a bank better? So I think you've then, can you support Man City and make that argument? You can't. You can't. Yeah, exactly. So, the idea that we're somehow, bigger than this when we're willing to buy a shirt that we don't know where it's made. I don't believe that. And there's 2 other things that I would say, because I'm conscious that I don't want to go on forever on this. Number one, Barcelona as a single entity need this to happen because we can't afford to exist the way we're going. A Copa del Rey win is not going to pay off Felipe Coutinho. So we need it. The other thing I would say, and this is my final take on it, it's a bit heavy, but I hope people understand it, is that if you don't have the same passion for inequality in healthcare and housing and schooling and construction and retail, and if you don't feel the same level of anger at the pursuit of greed above anything else that you do for football, reassess your priorities, because football, trust me, is the lowest rank on the totem pole of the things that we should be making. So if you're willing to overlook greed and equality in any other walk of life, but you get annoyed about football, you're missing something. So that's the other thing I would take away from this, is the amount of people I'm seeing on social media who will happily let things in their average life go, but are getting really wound up over this. Capitalism is capitalism is capitalism. Money is the root of a lot of good. It's the root of a lot of evil. And if you're willing to pursue it elsewhere, don't bring football to the same level as healthcare and housing. I don't want to hear it. So I think for me, it's an inevitability. We've ended up where we were always going to end up. I think UEFA and FIFA have nothing to do to stop this. The players probably will follow the cash, is my guess. And that's where we are, and we'll see it play out. But that's my overriding feeling on it, is that we could argue this about several of the walks of life, and people aren't willing to, but they will about football. And that's my conclusion to it, really.
I mean, look, you made some good points that I wasn't really ready for to hear, right? I mean, I understand all this with the capitalism and stuff. I guess for me, just as this pure football perspective, I just love the tournament so much going through these stages. I understand all the points you made. I agree with some of them. Again, I'm just a romanticist with this tournament, and I just don't want to see it change.
We all are, right? I think if you I doubt you'd find many football fans that can still vaguely remember football pre-Champions League, and I'm struggling because of my age to get there. But I'm certainly aware of the history. I was 5 when the Champions League kicked in, but I'm well aware of the history. If you were to give me a tournament only of the champions of each country, I'm going to be much more invested in that than I am in the Champions League. But if you're not going to give me that, and if you're going to have an imbalance on cash because the same teams will keep winning and keep going, we're going, in order to get back to that, I'm sorry to say it, you're going to have a complete stop of the Champions League, and you're going to have to press the reset button. You're going to have to find a way of basically wiping the debt that the clubs have, distributing funds somehow. Possibly that means dispersing squads somehow. It's impossible. So it's absolutely fine to be a romantic about this stuff, but let's be a realist about it as well, and say that the Champions League's a flawed product as is, and we're really squabbling. We're squabbling over scraps of morality here, no matter which way we turn, unless we do a complete reset. But I think it absolutely shafts the smaller clubs in leagues. I mean, it does.
And in fact, we have a comment from Andrew here. It says, "If any fans need a new allegiance, we at Birmingham City are open to taking on new supporters."
What a brilliant club to think of. And I'm genuinely mean this, Andrew. Birmingham, if I'm right, please correct me if I'm wrong. If you're still listening to us live, first £1 million player, Trevor Francis, he was to Birmingham, I believe. So why we're at the point that we've got, and I'm not saying that Birmingham City, the root of this is
of course
the pursuit of the better players for the better money isn't new. It's not new. And also clubs like Birmingham that were once giants, they're never going to break into this.
Exactly.
So it's not like this isn't, and that's no disrespect, it's not like this is an elitist club all of a sudden. The Champions League has been an elitist club for 2 decades now. So that's where we are. We're talking decades of build up to this, with the likes of Trevor Francis in the 70s, 80s, up to where we are now. So, yes, in my opinion, you absolutely have a right at this point to say, I don't like what my club is doing. I'm going to support someone else. And I get it.
Yeah, I mean,
but I question why you weren't doing that long ago, when it was clear what was going on, when oil money was getting pumped around stadiums and advertising boards, etc.
You know why? It's because we were winning tripletas. That's why. I mean, that's it. Winning gives you the blind eye to all this stuff. I mean, again, when I look at all these leagues, just to finish off here, all the leagues around the world that I follow, like NFL football, basketball, obviously La Liga and so forth. And there's a lot of good things that a lot of these leagues do, and a lot of bad things that they do, right? Like, for example, I'm always such a proponent of the way the NFL does their salary cap, that there's a minimum that every team has to spend, and then also a maximum, right? And that keeps the, every season you have different teams competing, and it makes it harder for you to retain superstar players, and you have to rely on scouting. And again, that's what I want to, ideally, I would love to see that, because I want to see, for example, remember back in the 2000s when it was Depor winning La Liga, right? I mean, this is back in the day, because there was this parity, there was these super team and disparity. And I want to see that in world football, but that's never going to happen anymore. We're at a point of no return with these clubs that are just, gargantuan money, salaries, all this stuff that is going to continue. So again,
100%.
My romanticism doesn't want to see the Champions League go, but at the same time, money talks, and these people have so much power and influence that I can see it happening within next season or 2 seasons, just like that.
Yeah, so. I agree, and I think I'm against the league because it's not right, but it's no worse than Champions League, I would argue.
Yeah. I hear you. From your football aspect, you brought some good points. So okay, I'll leave it. Really quick before we go, your favorite goal from Saturday night?
De Jong's.
The header.
Oh no, Griezmann's.
Which one?
No, De Jong. Griezmann's missed chance was my favorite moment of the game. No, De Jong's header was my favorite one. Messi's was obviously phenomenal, but I think De Jong's for me. You?
Griezmann, the first one. That run for me was that is something that you like as a forward, you show your, if you're coaching, you say, so look, this is how you have to meet the ball to a point, anticipate, beat your defender, right? That's the other thing. And then the finish was just, it was unsavable, So
how good was De Jong?
Yeah, that again. So this is one of the things is where you have these moments. I mean, that game for me was like De Jong of Ajax of Champions League run, where he was just a boss, like everywhere. And on top of that, I have to say, for me, was the right side of the pitch when De Jong went there, but also I think Serginho Dest had his best match of the season so far. His first touch, if you like watch the first half especially, his first touch off the ball was spectacular. Now, he could have done better with some of the crosses and some of the things, but to me, he's getting more comfortable, and to me, I'm very excited to see his development, because now that right side, before we were looking for so long for some clarity on attack and some sort of just tactical awareness going on there. It seems to know that we have that solidified with Mingueza and Dest, who are both 20 years old, essentially. So really exciting for that. But again, really quick, the first half for me was same old, but it was really good to see how they were able to go after it after they scored those first 2 goals. So that was very exciting to see that. So again, La Liga, that's the only thing that's left right now. And, there's about 7 games left, and we'll see how it goes. So Craig, go back to work. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure as always.
We'll talk soon. Everyone have a good day. Thanks for watching.